What is going on, football fans? The New York Giants were back at it again for their ninth training camp session. And in this training camp session, we have a lot of good things to report. And, of course, there remain some injuries. Eli Manning continued his consistent play, and we will get into all of that. The tight ends looked really good, whether it be C.J. Conrad, Evan Ingram, or Scott Simonson. I mean, they're very deep at that position, and today the tight ends really stood out. Rhett Ellison, I believe, caught a touchdown as well. But before we get into the highlights and the news and the notes, I always like to go over the injury report. Darius Slayton remained out with a hamstring injury. He's been out in the entire training camp. So is Britton Golden, the undrafted wide receiver, out with a groin injury. George Asafo-Adjai remains in concussion protocol. Hopefully he gets out there soon. Would like to see the seventh-round pick get some reps. Chad Wheeler was out for an unknown reason, which is important for him. He's trying to potentially compete for a starting job. B.J. Goodson out with a hamstring injury, and interesting to see who got to start in his place, and we're going to talk about that as well. But Goodson, often injured, remains injured in training camp. The X-Man was out for an unknown reason. I don't think there's anything serious to that. Maybe just giving him the day off. Matt McLaurin out with a broken foot. Grant Haley remains out with that shoulder injury, which, of course, took place the practice before. Sam Beal with a hamstring injury has missed the majority of training camp, which is not good for him, being that he's going up against DeAndre Baker, and Henry Tolliver was out with an ankle injury. In regards to Haley, Pat Shermer was asked about him, the slot corner. He said that he dove for a ball yesterday and fell on his shoulder, but he is going to be fine. So he sounded confident, and from the sounds of it, probably will be back very shortly in training camp. Wide receiver Sterling Shepard remained limited with that thumb injury, but he did make a couple of nice catches, and he did not have the yellow non-contact jersey on anymore, meaning that he is showing some progression, and hopefully he's at full capacity very soon. Don't expect him to play against the Jets, though. I'd be surprised if he did. Now, let's jump into the news and notes, and let's jump into some of these highlights. So, we always like to start with the quarterback position, whether it be Eli Manning, Daniel Jones. They didn't record the touchdown stats for some reason today, but based on some of the news from the notes I read from other players, Eli threw a few touchdowns. He was 10 of 12 as he continues to look extremely sharp. And in one of these clips, you'll see he throws a beautiful deep ball. You definitely see that the arm strength is still there. So a lot of good things out of Eli Manning. Daniel Jones, 6 of 11. So not the best of practices. Neither one threw an interception from what I read. So Daniel Jones continues to learn under Eli. And I read another report as well that said that Daniel Jones is playing very well, but he is not in any kind of competition with Eli Manning as recently as 4 hours ago. So Eli Manning's our guy this year going into the season. So like I said, the tight ends really stood out, and we're going to start with C.J. Conrad. C.J. Conrad, the undrafted tight end, all you keep reading about is this guy. Whether it be mandatory minicamps, OTAs, and training camp, he continues to stand out. He was the standout of yesterday's practice, according to several media sources. Very strong blocking skills, and he caught a couple of nice passes down the field. But Conrad is really standing out, and expect him to definitely make this 53-man roster. He even got some reps with the first team. Benny Fowler continues to be a standout at camp, made a couple of really nice catches according to the notes, and I expect Fowler to really contend to start this season with the Giants based on the lack of depth if Sterling Shepard does not play that opening day. If Shepard plays, well, then Fowler will probably be maybe the fourth receiver, third receiver, but he's really played well this entire offseason. He's really stood out. Saquon Barkley made a couple of really nice runs, and that's what you expect from this guy. Can't wait to see this guy against the Jets and really get to see this guy in game action, but he's played really well throughout training camp. Rhett Ellison made a really good play on an Eli Manning pass for a touchdown in the 2-minute drill. So like I said, an emphasis on the tight end position. They all played really well. Evan Ingram made a couple of really good catches as well, according to the notes. And Evan Ingram's really been one of the big standouts in camp. They really harped on the matchup between Peppers and Ingram. They said it was very fierce. They said Peppers was all over Ingram, but Ingram was able to come down with some tight catches, which is what you want to hear. Jabril Peppers, tight coverage, something we're not used to, being that Landon Collins got burnt a lot by the tight ends last year. They said he had really tight coverage on Ingram, but Ingram was able to come down with some of the balls. Reggie White Jr. looked lost on some of the routes. According to the notes, he did catch a touchdown, however, later in the practice by Laletta. Linebackers Alec Ogletree and Kareem Martin really stood out according to the notes that I read. They were both very active and disruptive out there. Ogletree, of course, was a bit of a disappointment last year for the New York Giants. He had the lowest PFF grade, I believe, of any player on the team. Giants are going to need him to take a big step up if this defense is going to improve. And hopefully second year in Betcher's system can do that for him. But he looked really good yesterday. And then, of course, we're going to get into some of who started where, where they were. Julian Love, for example, got to start with the first-team defense, being that Grant Haley was out. We got to see him at some slot corner. He also played on the second-team defense in the safety position. So you continue to see the variety of ways that the New York Giants plan to use this kid. Julian Love is getting a lot of reps at both the slot corner and the safety position, which is what he was drafted for out of Notre Dame, what you heard on draft night. Daniel Jones threw a good deep ball into the corner of the end zone, which you like to hear as well. Janoris Jenkins knocked the ball away. Not a lot else, in terms of the notes. What I really wanted to harp on was the tight end position. Scott Simonson also had a really strong practice. And like I said, Eli Manning remains consistent throughout camp. And no major injuries today. Of course, you still have Slayton on the report. A couple of other guys. But the team overall remained healthy throughout this session, which is the most important thing. But as always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe. Drop a comment. Maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.